Hey everybody, I'm here today with a driving lesson about looking ahead while driving. It is super important to look ahead while you're driving because it will allow you to be a better driver and definitely a safer driver. So in this driving lesson, I'll be going over the basics of looking ahead. I'll be telling you why it's important. I'll be telling you about some strategies that you can use and also be demonstrating myself doing it while I'm driving on these side streets. All right, let's get right into the video. First and foremost, why is it important to look ahead while driving? Well, it's important to look ahead while driving because it gives you an advanced notice as to what's going to be happening. If I'm driving down this street right now and I'm looking only 5 or 10 feet in front of the car, I'm going to find out when I encounter an obstacle or an obstruction like that, right? Like I'm going to see it 5 feet in front of the car and then I'm going to have to slam on my brakes or swerve out of the way. I won't have advance notice. But instead, on the other hand, if I'm looking further ahead down the road, I can see that obstacle or that obstruction or that car that's pulled over well in advance. I can plan my reaction and I can react in a safe way. So the key factor is to be able to know in advance so you can plan your reaction. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know one person that's driving and looking only 5 feet in front of their car, but those examples were used to just give you an idea in theory as to why it's way better to look ahead while you're driving. Now, I'm going to be going over 3 specific situations in which it's important to look ahead while you're driving. The first situation is while you're driving straight in a straight line. The second situation is while you're turning right or left, I should say. And because you can't really turn right and left at the same time, it's right or left, right? It's one or the other. And the third situation is when you're doing other driving maneuvers, like pulling over or, moving away from the curb or doing a 3-point turn or a U-turn or anything like that. Now, let's go over some basics. While you're driving straight, it's relatively simple to look ahead because you're just going to be looking a few cars in front of you. Now, let's say you're driving behind a truck and all you can see is the truck in front of you. What you're going to do is you're going to continually glance to the lane beside you because chances are if the person beside you, in the lane beside you, that's 4 or 5 cars in front of that person, right? So in the lane beside you, 4 or 5 cars ahead, if they're pressing their brakes, you might have to press your brakes in your lane as well. So it's a good gauge as to what's happening. But generally speaking, if you're not driving behind a really large vehicle, then you're going to be able to look ahead 3, 4, 5 cars ahead of you. This means that when that person presses their brakes 5 cars ahead of you, you're going to know that you're going to have to press your brakes soon, instead of waiting until the car in front of you presses their brakes, in which you're like, wow, I have to slam my brakes right now because they're braking. You want to know in advance what's going to happen. Also, if you're driving on a side street and you're not behind a car, look well ahead of you, further ahead of you, because it'll tell you if a car is pulled over, if there's a large pothole, if there's construction happening, if there's something that's fallen onto the road. You'll know about all of these things well in advance. The second situation is when you're turning right or left. When you're turning right or left, you should obviously look in front of the car before you turn to make sure that, it's actually safe to turn in front of the car. You don't want to turn into a curb or a tree, or you don't want to come close to a pedestrian or anything like that. So you want to look in front of the car, but once you see where the curb is and where any obstructions are and so forth, then you can look ahead in the turn. So if I'm making a right-hand turn, I'm going to look in front of the car, then I'm going to look ahead where I plan on turning, my turning pathway. What that's going to do is that's going to allow me to know what's happening further down the road. This means that if a car is pulled over further down the road, instead of turning and saying, whoa, there's the car pulled over, and having to swerve, I know that I can plan out my pathway well in advance. The third situation is when you're doing other maneuvers like pulling towards a curb or pulling away from a curb or doing a 3-point turn or anything like that. In all of these situations, you want to know what's happening well in advance down the road and also what's happening behind your car. If I'm going to pull over to the curb, to the side of the road, I'm looking way down the road to make sure that it's safe to pull over, and also I'm looking behind me and I'm signaling, I'm checking my mirrors, I'm checking my blind spots and doing all of those other safety checks, but I'm definitely looking further ahead down the road and further behind me. And the same thing goes for when I'm, doing a 3-point turn or a U-turn. You really want to make sure that it's absolutely safe to do that driving maneuver before you actually do it. All right, now, one of my driving tutorials pretty much wouldn't be complete without actually driving the car and demonstrating those things for you. So it's raining right now. Let's turn on the windshield wipers. We're actually going to drive, and I'm going to demonstrate those 3 things and what I'm doing for looking ahead. Driving in a straight line, turning right or left, and also doing another maneuver like pulling towards the curb or maybe even a 3-point turn, depending on the situation. All right, let's put the car in drive, release the emergency brake, and let's start driving. So right now, I am actually driving in a straight line. And now that I'm driving in a straight line, I'm looking well in advance. Well in advance. There's an intersection in front of me with a 4-way stop, with an always stop. I'm actually looking at the intersection and then way past the intersection. And that's because it allows me to know what's happening down the road in front of me. I don't want to be left wondering what to do down the road in front of me. If there's a car pulled over, if there's a tree that's fallen onto the road, if there's construction, if there's a construction pylon, whatever the case is, okay? So I'm looking well ahead down the road, like well ahead. And I'll tell you right now, like I'm looking at a sign and I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I just passed that sign. So I'm looking like 7 seconds in advance. That means that if I see something on the road, I have at least 7 seconds to react, because generally speaking, I would actually, look even further than that. So I'm gonna pull over, looking way down the road and way behind me, checking my blind spots and my mirrors and so forth. And now I'm gonna do a 3-point turn. So I'm looking way down this road in front of me before I do the 3-point turn, way behind me. Now I'm gonna check all of my mirrors and my blind spots, and I'm ready to do the 3-point turn. I know that it's safe to do so because I actually checked way down the road in front of me and way down the road behind me. I looked ahead. So let's go ahead and do the 3-point turn. Let's go ahead and proceed. And I'm constantly looking down both ends of the road because I saw that it was safe to start the 3-point turn, but I want to make sure that, there's no cars coming. I can see a car right there right now, but I have enough time to complete the 3-point turn. I'm actually looking way down the road in both directions. Very important to look ahead. Last but not least, I'm gonna make a turn, a left-hand turn. Now, on the street right here. So my signal goes on, checking my mirrors, checking my blind spot, and now I'm looking in front of the car. I see that I'm clear to make that turn. Now I'm looking way down the road. And I can see there's a truck pulled over here on the left side of the road, but I'm clear on the right side. So, but they're doing construction over there. So because I looked ahead down the road, I was able to see that construction and make sure that it was safe to proceed down that street. And that's basically it. In this video, I've gone over the importance of looking ahead while driving. I've outlined a few strategies and a few situations in which you should be looking ahead while you're driving, and I've demonstrated myself using that strategy for you while driving on these side streets. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment, and of course, be sure to subscribe for more great car and driving videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.